I'll do that. Yeah. I guess we go down. So in that case,
also just priorities for I think we talked about this. Well, priorities for
yeah. Let's move all setup stuff into the other room now. Let's move your laptop actually for now, just so we clear this area up now. All right, everybody. So we're gonna get started now. Today is a little bit interesting, primarily because on Eventbrite we said it started at 5 and it actually starts at 5:30 with our first stuff here. So today we're gonna be going through a few different workshops that will get you up and running with working on your own Battlesnake. We're gonna start out with an introduction to what Battlesnake is, kind of an overview of what you'll be doing over the weekend, and then we're gonna dive into two concurrent running workshops. So one in here, one in the room right beside us, and the first one will be on Python, the second one will be on JavaScript, and so we'll get you up and running with some of the template code. And then finally, we're going to end off with a workshop on backend web development as well as doing HTTP requests. And so, that's like the workshop portion. Throughout this section, we're going to have quite a few people moving around. There might be more people coming in, but since this one's almost full, I'm probably going to move people to the other room in a little bit and rerun this presentation over there. But with that being said, we do also have a social part of this evening. And the reason for this is I assume, or we know that a lot of people are coming out today without necessarily other people that they plan on working with, but we do want to make sure that we have as many teams of 4 as possible. And so we'll be doing an icebreaker. We call it, we call it Battlesnake Bingo, but I stole it from MLH, and so it's probably an MLH thing. But the idea is that you'll be able to kind of go around, meet some other people, hopefully find some others that you can work on a team with. And then come tomorrow morning, that's when we're going to have the larger airfield opening ceremonies. We'll be doing like full registration, everything like that. And so for tonight, we'll get started with what is Battlesnake. I'm going to hand it over to Addy to do this presentation. So without further ado, everybody give a round of applause for Addy.
Right, well, first, so gracious to introduce me. I'm Addy, Director of Social for the CCSS, and also one of the event leads for the event of the evening and tomorrow's event. So, as first mentioned, we'll be doing a couple of workshops. So the first workshop is what is Battlesnake? So I'm assuming like a lot of you signed up kind of just based off the cool description that we gave, and also like what's Battlesnake? Who here knows what Battlesnake is? Right. Yeah. There you go. That makes sense. So does anyone not know about the Snake games that you play like on Nokia phones or anything like that? Does everyone know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Well, essentially that's what Battlesnake is. So that's just like a quick introduction that I'm giving, but I'll go more in depth as we go along. So, interesting. All right, cool. I guess okay. I just have to do this. All right. So as I mentioned, I'll talk about what Battlesnake, then also just a little bit of what today's will look like. So as you mentioned, there's 2 days. So this is focusing on today's agenda, and then we'll go forward with tomorrow's. And then I'll be talking about how you program your Battlesnake, the rules and objectives, and also just some strategies to kind of help you win and get those cool prizes. So what is Battlesnake? It's a multiplayer programming game, where your code is your controller. So as I mentioned, the rules of the game are similar to that of like the Nokia Snake game. But basically what you must do is you have to code the AI that actually plays the game. So in the past, you probably played the game where you like click the arrow keys and make the snake go wherever you want. Now essentially what you're doing is you're judging the state of the board and like the other snakes that are on the board, and you basically have to code an AI. Now I say AI, and that might kind of sound like complicated to you, but I'm not an AI specialist here, so don't worry, it can be as simple as you want. It doesn't have to be like a complicated machine learning type algorithm. So you have to program your Battlesnake to outmaneuver your opponent. So it's basically like a battle royale where there's 4 snakes in one game. and then you have to basically battle the 4 snakes, and you have to last the longest. So what does it mean to last the longest? Well, it basically means you just have to survive till the end. So as you see, this is what like a typical game would look like. So you kind of go around, you take the food that's available on the board, and then you have like you're basically one against one here. But it started off as 4, then we'll see eventually one of them dies. That sounds like it will. Right, there you go. So what happened there is the snake kind of rolled in on itself. I'll talk about the specific rules later, but basically one of the snakes kind of rolled in on themselves. The other one kind of bumped into another one, so that's why they died. So you just want to make sure that your snake lasts the longest, and if you last till the end, then you're the winner. So and then you compete in the tournament, which is happening tomorrow. So, cool stuff. So what will today look like? So the first workshop is the one that I'm doing right now, which is what is Battlesnake, as well as the strategies workshop, which is the second part of this one. Afterwards, we're going to have 2 concurrent workshops, which is intro coding in Python and intro coding in JS. So this will be kind of explaining the basics of both of those languages. So if you're not familiar with any of those, don't worry about it. We'll be going over the basics and helping you get set up with that. After that, we'll be doing an intro to HTTP and web servers, like development workshop. And yeah, so that will basically be giving you more of background on in terms of how Battlesnake works and what are the things you have to consider when you're actually programming it. Because you will find that when you're actually coding, it'll be kind of like Battlesnake is just magically working, like the system is just kind of happening, but you don't really know what's going on in the background. So that's what the point of this workshop is going to be, just to kind of show you what's exactly happening behind the scenes. Afterwards, we'll have a networking icebreaker, and for those of you who are online, yes. For those of you online, we'll be having a street friending on Discord. So this is a good opportunity to meet new people, and if you don't have a team yet, you can find some teams. And then finally, we'll be ending off with the game night, and then that'll wrap up the evening. So one common question that we've been getting a lot is this an overnight event? No, it's not. There's nothing happening overnight. We want you to, sleep comfortably in your bed. So we don't want you to sleep on the corner of the floor here. So none of that's happening. We'll be running the next day starting at 9:30. So yeah, just come early Saturday. Yeah, no need to stay here. All right, so you should have gotten an email and also on the CCSS Discord server, you should have seen this Notion.tel link. If you don't have it, then you can just scan the QR code or enter this link. This Notion doc basically gives you like a run through of the whole event and gives you the schedule, the prizes, as well as additional information. So the type of information I'm giving here will also be available on that Notion document. So yeah, if you don't have it, then you can scan the code or enter that link. I'll give you a few seconds, but if you don't have it yet, it's okay. I'll display it again at the end. All right, so now let's get into the programming part. So when you're programming your Battlesnake, you're essentially designing your own web server that plays the game. So how Battlesnake works is that they have a front end. So these words might not mean something to you. For that, you can stay tuned for the future workshop. But essentially, how it works is you're going to be coding like the server side or the back end, like the logic of the system, and then the Battlesnake system is automatically going to be calling your code. So basically, what happens is the Battlesnake system sends a request with game information, so like the board, the other snake, the food available, stuff like that. And then based on that, you want to make a decision on what the best move will be. So should I turn left? Should I turn right? Should I go to the bottom? Should I go to the top? Right? Depending on a lot of factors like where the food is, where the other snakes are. If you're not going out of bounds, you turn a certain direction. So this is what it'll look like. So the game engine there, that's the game word, same that we did that I was showing earlier. And then there's the game engine. And essentially, these are each URLs. So all of these Battlesnake URLs are basically just the web server that you're coding. So what's going to be happening is the game engine is going to be sending a request. What's going to be like, what's the next move to your specific battle, and then your Battlesnake should respond with up, down, left, or right. So in this specific string that should respond. There's also this 500 millisecond like timeout. This is kind of important, but also not important. It's important because if you go above 500 milliseconds, it'll time out and it'll just default a move, which may kill you. So not ideal if that happens. But the reason why I say it's not important is because, well, okay, I'll say it is important. I'm not going to go further with that. All right. It's important to keep track of that. So you want to make sure that your Battlesnake is as efficient as possible, because if it goes over that 500 millisecond thing, then there's really no point of actually doing all that logic and all that work. So these are the different paths that I've called. Again, these things might not mean much to you, so you can stay tuned for that. You do basically how this works is, first, this regular path request that the Battlesnake sends should basically just check the latency and also just any customization. So like you can have your own custom header tail, you can have like a custom color, a custom name. There's also like custom phrases, but I don't really know how those work because they don't exactly work all the time. And then yeah, so any customizations that you have with your game will be available to you with that GET request. Then when you do a post start, that just starts the game. Post end, similar thing, just ends the game. So these two things you don't really have to worry about. These are if you go with one of the templates, well, which I'll be going over here. If you use one of the templates, these are basically given to you, so you don't have to worry about these ones. This is the main thing that you have to worry about, which is post move. So this post move is basically going to send in the information about the game board as well as the other snakes. So it'll say it's like a 2D array, and you basically have to like determine where on the board the different snakes are, and if you can afford going in a certain direction. If you end up going that direction, then is it the ideal direction? Is it going to kill you? You know, what can you do right now? What's available on the game? So if I go back a few slides, so if you look here, what you'll get inside of that post request is the information about the size of the board, what the boundaries are, where the other snake's heads and bodies are, where your snake's heads and body is, of course, and then where the food is on the specific grid. And based on that, you'll just determine what your ideal move is. So you can see here it's like kind of going around. So it determines that maybe you should, turn left, turn right, go to the bottom, go to the top. So yeah. So this is the customization. You can see here there's like the API version, author, stuff, whatever. Color, head, and tail. So these are basically like, this is what your snake would look like if you had the nougat head, the curled tail, and then this color. This is what it'll look like. You can actually customize it however you want. There's a few heads and tails that are available. You can actually look at it, all that on the Battlesnake website, which I'll be linking later on. So yeah, that's what an SE request looks like. So you basically want to make sure you avoid walls. This is like basic strategy. This is like right off the bat. This is like something you don't want to do. Right? Not go for the walls. So if your Battlesnake moves beyond the game, the boundary of the game, then you'll be eliminated, which is not ideal. It'll kind of be unfortunate if you have this super complicated snake that's gonna be like killing other snakes and all of a sudden just bumps into a wall and dies. Not exactly ideal. Post move. So this is the one that I was saying is most important. You'll receive all this information, the game ID, that's not too important. The board height and width, turn number, also not as important. All Battlesnake locations, food locations, and your Battlesnake ID. So as I mentioned, based on the information, you'll have like these 4 moves that are available to you, and then you have to respond with the move that should be made. So for those of you who are familiar with HTTP and requests and responses, essentially what happens is you get a post request with the body being all of that information, and then you have to respond with this JSON object move and what move you should make. Again, if it's not familiar, don't worry about it. So the standard board is 11 by 11. Of course, it's an array, so 0 base. And this is the game that we'll be playing, so 11 by 11. We won't be going larger or smaller. So ideally, you'd want to scale it to any board game size, but if you can only do it so that it works for 11 by 11, that's fine for the tournament purposes because that's all you really have to work on. Yeah, these are some other technical notes. So Battlesnake must respond with HTTP 200 OK. Again, free stuff. I'll explain that next or later. Battlesnake has 500 milliseconds to respond. So again, if you go beyond that, it'll make a default move, which might make you die. Might not. You might get lucky, but yeah, rather not that happen. Any error will make your Battlesnake move forward. So that means if it turns left in the last turn, and then there's an error that happens, and you get a 500, it'll just keep going straight. And then the game engine runs in AWS CSS. Yeah, so as I was mentioning, this is the Battlesnake website, docs.battlesnake.com. So all of the information I just gave you is all available there. There is also a bunch of guides that you can follow, which kind of cover all the information I just gave, as well as some additional things that you might find confusing as I'm kind of explaining this. So if there's any confusion, you can refer to this at all times, and it'll be basically all the help you need. I mentioned some starter projects. This is where you find those. So these starter projects essentially provide you with all of the language type setup that you need, and then all you really have to do is code the move. You have to code the move code essentially. You have to program the move thing. You have to do the move post thing for it to work according to what your strategy is, and strategies again. So yeah, this is a good base to work off of, because this gives you a lot of redundant work is done for you. A lot of the work that you would need to start off your snake is already done. So, yeah. Mentors and help will be available throughout the competition, so you can reach out to Forrester I at any point, or you can reach out to any of the volunteers. You'll see them wearing black lanyards once we give those out to them. So if there's at any point you need any help, you can reach out to anyone. All right. So the next thing are the rules on the effectiveness of the game. So before I move forward to this, are there any questions? Cool. All right. So as I mentioned, you want to survive as long as possible without being eliminated. So what is being eliminated? So if you collide with another Battlesnake, including with yourself, it will be eliminated. So if you collide with yourself, I just saw what this will do here. You collide with yourself and then die, right? So you want to avoid the Battlesnake as much as possible, the other ones on the board, which is why it's important to kind of consider that when you're making your moves. You want to eat food to stay healthy. So the Battlesnake will be losing health every turn. So you're given a certain amount of health at the beginning, and then each time you eat one of these things, you basically get more health. It also gets longer, but you get more health, which is what you need to keep running. Because as you run, you'll keep losing some health. If your health reaches 0, then you die. Unfortunately, way to die. And then the food, as I mentioned, restores health and increases the length cycle. Head-to-head collisions. This is kind of like a special case. So if you collide head-to-head with another snake, the shorter snake will die. But if both are the same length, then both will die. So that's when considerations of length become important when you're considering your move. If you want to go ahead, because there's some strategies where I'm getting ahead of myself, but there's some strategies where the snake can just go after other snakes and collide head to head with them, and then eliminate all the snakes that way because they're long enough. So if you want to do that, it's a pretty cool strategy, but yeah, just make sure you consider your length. And then, of course, last remaining Battlesnake is the winner. And yeah, this is another helpful documentation side of things for the Battlesnake website. This basically provides a lot of the information I provided. Again, yeah. And then you can ask us if you have any questions throughout the event. You can also join our Discord server, which is where we'll be doing most of the communications and announcements and stuff like that. So you can find that Discord server in the link here. Also, there's the Battlesnake Discord, which you can join. The mentors and also the community there is quite active, so you can get a response pretty quickly. There's also the Battlesnake email, which I don't really think you'll get a response on time, but if you want to try, go for it. It's available. So yeah. All right. So now we move on to the fun part, which is the strategy. So I've mentioned a few strategies as I went along. So some of these might come up again, but this is kind of going to be going more in depth in terms of what other things you can consider when you're coding your Battlesnake. So starter strategy, of course, don't run into walls, don't run into yourself, don't run into others, and don't run out of time. These are the things that I mentioned throughout the workshop, so make sure you keep track of it. There's a resource video available here, but you can look at it. So this is where the board height and width become important because those are what consider your walls. So this is basically what a sample like request would look like. This is the type of information for the game board. So like these are all the snakes. Hazards you don't have to worry about. We don't have those. Food, width and height, which is 11 by 11, as I mentioned. And then all that information is fine. And then this snake thing will also have your own snake in it, so that's an important consideration because you don't want to avoid your own snake, or you do want to avoid your own snake, but you don't. It might become confusing if you try avoiding your own snake. So that's a big important consideration to have. But anyways, yes, this is what a general request looks like. So you want to run it to walls, consider the width and height of the board. You'll run it to yourself. So as you can see here, there's this body information that's available, or this view attribute that's part of the request that you get. So this is like your snake. But again, this is the information available separately, but there's also the snakes list, which also has your snake. So your snake is basically there 2 times. And you don't want to run into others, right? So these are the other snakes. This is all the information that you have. You also have their health and stuff. You have their length. So this is like where the strategy that I was mentioning becomes important. If you want to go head to head with another snake and you want to kind of kill all the snakes that are in your path, then length is an important consideration to take. So it's pretty good to have that there. Don't run out of health. So your health is mentioned there, and then this is where the food is. So you just want to go for food as much as possible if you're running out of health, or if you're running low on health. These are important considerations to take. And then these are the next level strategies. So what I just mentioned was all like starter snake strategies. So if you don't want to get too complicated, and if this is like your first time working with the Battlesnake platform or just on Battlesnake in general, I would recommend going for the starter strategies first. But if you want to challenge yourself, very fun, you can go with the next level strategies. So how do we want our Battlesnake to behave? So you can either make it a very peaceful Battlesnake that just looks for its food and then like avoids conflict, or you can make it a very aggressive Battlesnake that looks for food, kills everyone in its path. You know, it's up to you. How the other Battlesnake behaving? This is where it becomes a little bit complicated because this is like machine learning AI type stuff because you have to analyze the other snake and adapt your own snake based on that. If you can do that, that's very, very cool, and I would be very impressed. So if you want to do that, go ahead. But it is a bit harder because, again, you have to assess what the other snake is doing, and then sometimes the strategy isn't super clear. So I once played a Battlesnake, like in a Battlesnake tournament, and one of the snake strategies was just looping around himself. And guess what? That snake actually won the tournament. So yeah, I wouldn't know how I would even like counter that. So how much should we eat and when? So that's something you can consider as well. So as I mentioned, that snake that kept looping around somehow always knew when it needed food and always avoided the other snakes. I don't know how they coded that, but it was pretty cool. So like it would just kind of keep looping on itself. Then when it starts running out of health, it would take the food and can start looping again. Yeah. How aggressive do we want it to be? Again, this is depending on how you want your Battlesnake to behave, and what are the situations you should look out for. So this one is an important consideration to take because this one kind of determines all of these almost. Because situations where you have a Battlesnake that's like closing in on you, then how do you want to adapt to that? That would depend on how your Battlesnake behaves. Situations where there's not enough food on the board, or there's one that's like with a Battlesnake in the way. How much do we eat and what? You know, so these are this one question basically encompasses all of these. So this is like an important consideration too. So this is how you basically consider the different types of strategies for your snake, and you go beyond just the starter strategy that's going to provide for you. So if you want to check how your snake is working, which I highly recommend, you can actually create snake games or Battlesnake games with your own snake, or you can add your own snake there. And then you can basically find opponent's strengths and weaknesses, so you can basically analyze it manually, so you don't have to actually use like a machine learning algorithm. You can also manually assess what's going on and then tweak your move as like you kind of go about your teams. And then you can basically just research on that and then develop and document your strategy. There are tools that are available to build your strategy. So as I mentioned, custom game creation. So custom game creation is like you basically get to add all the snakes that you want to your to any snake that you want to a specific game, and then run that game, see how it unfolds, and then based on that adapt. There's also Battlesnake challenges and battlegrounds. I won't be focusing too much on battlegrounds because that's kind of its own thing. But Battlesnake challenges, those are like things that are just available on the platform. You'll kind of see them like promoted everywhere, so it'll be hard to miss them if you want to participate in that. But I would say that the custom game creation is one of your most important tools. So these are the next steps. Create your account at play.battlesnake.com. I'll see how I'm doing this slide. Okay, we're getting close. Then you want to create your Battlesnake based on this link here, the doc.battlesnake.com. Then you want to test using challenges and custom games. And then these two things, these are going to be tomorrow's things where you submit your snake to the tournament and then you watch live. So these things, you don't have to worry about that yet. So the things that kind of have to start considering are these first three things. I think that's it. Right, any questions? Yeah.
I might have missed this earlier on, but when the snake hits the wall,
yeah,
are there things like wrapping as well? Is that like a strategy that you mentioned here? Like if it goes from one side, like on the left, and comes on the right side, or is that not?
No, so if it goes too much towards the wall, it's just collide with it on the side. Yeah, you can't make it loose unless you like make it go backwards or something. But yeah, apart from that, yeah. Any other questions? All right, awesome. Well, I'll go back to the 15 code with the motion docs if anyone get that. But there we go. But yeah, thank you for listening.
All right, so now that it is 6 o'clock, we're going to split off into the two separate rooms that are going to be going through the Python side of Battlesnake and the JavaScript side. So if you're interested in staying for the Python one, that will be in this room, and if you're interested in doing the JavaScript one, that will be in the other room. So as I'll just also mention now, we do have some snacks here today. Pizza will be coming around 7-ish. I just placed the order, and so that will probably be right after the next workshop. Maybe we'll see. Anyway, feel free to stick around here or move to the other room. So I'm going to give you a go help. Is your Discord posted here right now? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to log you and use mine to see if I'm going to stream so I can do it from my laptop. Also, actually, I can maybe move this to the table right here.
I mean, I don't think
I just said get hers going live.
Yeah. So I can log myself out.
Yeah. Let you log yourself up there.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, so for your HTTP talk, I'm thinking because we have too many people in one room, it'd be best if you split up into two. Can you send me the link to it, and I'll give the same presentation in the other room. I'll just need to look through the slides first.
So a few things with that one is like I have like purples everywhere. So
Stop assuming you're dead.
oh
Just put that tab. Can we use Go for it?
oh
Half second. No, we're good.